The cargo ship moved slowly through the dark space between stars. It was an old ship, not pretty to look at, but it worked well enough. Inside, Wu sat in the pilot's seat and watched the empty blackness ahead. He was alone, as he had been for the past 3 weeks. Wu was 28 years old. He had dark hair that was too long and tired eyes that had seen too much. 5 years ago, he left the military. Now he carried cargo from one station to another, living a quiet life far from anyone who might remember his name. He liked it this way. No orders, no commanders, just him and the stars. His ship was called the Silent Wave. It was small, meant for one person and a lot of boxes. The walls were gray metal and the lights buzzed softly. Everything smelled like engine oil and instant noodles. It was not comfortable, but it was his. The computer made a sound. Wu looked at the screen and frowned. There was a signal coming from somewhere nearby, a distress signal. Someone was calling for help. He checked the location. The signal came from inside an asteroid field about 2 hours away. That area was not on any map. No stations, no colonies, nothing but rocks floating in the dark. Wu thought about ignoring it. The smart thing was to keep going. Asteroid fields were dangerous. Pirates sometimes used fake signals to trap ships. He had enough problems without adding more. But the signal kept repeating, over and over. Someone was out there, waiting for help that might never come. He closed his eyes and let out a long breath. Then he turned the ship toward the asteroid field. The rocks were huge, some of them bigger than cities. Wu flew carefully between them, watching for anything that might hit his ship. The distress signal grew stronger as he got closer. Finally, he saw it. A shuttle, or what was left of one. The small ship had crashed into one of the asteroids. Its body was torn open, and pieces of metal floated around it like leaves in water. Burn marks covered the hull. This was not an accident. Someone had attacked this shuttle and left it to die. Wu brought his ship close and looked at the markings on the wreckage. His heart beat faster when he recognized them. This was a ship. They were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They were tall and beautiful, with skin that shone like silver and blue mixed together. Their technology was far beyond anything humans had built. Their empire covered hundreds of worlds. And they did not like humans. To them, humans were young and foolish. Dangerous animals who had only recently learned to fly between stars. Most would not even speak to a human. Some called them barbaric. Some called them worse. Wu knew all of this. He also knew that someone on that shuttle might still be alive. He put on his space suit and crossed over to the wreckage. The inside of the shuttle was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered red, showing him broken walls and shattered glass. Bodies lay on the floor. Soldiers in beautiful armor, all of them dead. Their silver blood had frozen in the cold of space. Wu moved deeper into the shuttle. He checked each body looking for any sign of life. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Then he heard it, a soft sound, breathing. He followed the sound to a small room at the back of the shuttle. The door was stuck, so he forced it open with his hands. Inside, hidden under a pile of broken metal, he found her. She was young, maybe 20 years old in human terms. Her skin was pale blue, almost white, and her hair was like silver threads. She wore a dress made of something that looked like liquid starlight. Blood covered her arm and her side. Her eyes were closed, but her chest moved slowly up and down. She was alive. Wu did not know who she was. He did not know why her shuttle had been attacked. He only knew that she would die if he left her here. He picked her up carefully. She was lighter than he expected, like holding a dream. Her eyes opened for just a moment. They were purple, deep and bright like the heart of a nebula. She looked at him with fear. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm going to help you." She did not understand his words. She only saw a human face, something her people had taught her to fear. But she was too weak to fight. Her eyes closed again and she went limp in his arms. Wu carried her back to his ship. He laid her on his bed, the only bed on the silent wave, and looked at her wounds. The cuts were deep, and she had lost a lot of blood. He had medical supplies, but they were meant for humans. He did not know if they would work on her. He had to try. For the next 6 hours, Wu worked without rest. He cleaned her wounds and closed them with medical glue. He gave her water and wrapped her in blankets to keep her warm. He watched her temperature and her breathing, checking every few minutes to make sure she was still alive. The ship's computer told him that biology was similar to human biology, similar enough. The medicine would not kill her. Whether it would save her was another question. Wu sat beside the bed and waited. Outside the window, the stars moved slowly past. The universe did not care about one small ship or the 2 people inside it. The universe never cared. But Wu cared. He did not know why. He had learned long ago not to get involved in other people's problems. He had learned that helping others only led to pain. But something about this girl, this stranger from a species that hated his kind, made him want to protect her. Near morning, her eyes opened again. She looked at him, still afraid, still confused. But this time she did not look away. "Where am I?" she asked in her own language. Wu did not understand the words, but he understood the question. He pointed at himself and said his name slowly. "Wu." She stared at him for a long moment. Then, in a voice like music, she spoke. "Lyra." It was her name, her first gift to him, the beginning of something neither of them could have imagined. Wu nodded and gave her a small smile. "Rest now, Lyra, you're safe." She did not understand his words, but somehow she understood his meaning. Her eyes closed and she slept. For the first time since the attack, she slept without fear. Outside, the stars kept their silent watch, and the silent wave flew on, carrying its unexpected passenger toward an uncertain future. 3 days passed on the silent wave. Lyra spent most of that time sleeping, her body fighting to heal itself. Wu stayed close, checking her wounds and making sure she had water. He did not sleep much. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her blood on his hands. On the 4th day, Lyra finally woke up fully. She sat up in the bed and looked around the small ship with wide eyes. Everything here was so different from what she knew. The walls were rough metal, not smooth crystal. The lights were harsh and yellow, not soft and blue. The air smelled strange. And there was a human sitting in the corner, watching her. Lyra felt her heart beat fast. She had been taught about humans since she was a child. They were violent creatures. They killed each other over small things. They destroyed their own planet before spreading to the stars like a disease. Her teachers had warned her to stay away from them. But this human had not hurt her. He had saved her. She watched him carefully. He was not tall for his kind, but he looked strong. His face was calm and his eyes were kind. He did not smile, but he did not seem angry either. He just sat there, waiting for her to speak. Lyra realized she was wearing different clothes. Her beautiful dress was gone, replaced by a simple gray shirt that was too big for her. She touched her arm where the wound had been. Someone had cleaned it and wrapped it in white cloth. He had done all of this human. "Why?" she asked in the common galactic language. Her voice was weak and rough. Wu looked surprised that she could speak a language he understood. He thought for a moment before answering. "You were hurt. You needed help." "I am. Your people and mine are not friends." "I know." "Then why did you help me?" Wu shrugged. It was such a human gesture, so simple and honest. "Does it matter? You were dying. I could help, so I helped." Lyra did not know what to say. In her world, everything had a reason. Every action had a purpose. People did not help strangers without wanting something in return. But this man seemed to want nothing. "What is your name?" she asked. "Wu." "I am Lyra." She paused, wondering how much she should tell him. "Princess Lyra of the Empire, daughter of Empress Nova." Wu's expression did not change. He nodded slowly as if she had told him the weather. "A princess. That explains the fancy ship." Lyra almost laughed. Almost. Here she was, telling him she was royalty, and he acted like it was nothing special. Any other person in the galaxy would have fallen to their knees or tried to use her for money. But this human just sat there, calm as stone. "My shuttle was attacked," she said. "There are people who want my mother removed from power. They tried to kill me to hurt her." "Do they know you survived?" "I do not think so. The attack was fast. They probably believe I am dead." "Good, let's keep it that way." Wu stood up and walked to the pilot's area. Lyra followed him slowly, her legs still weak. She watched as he looked at maps and charts on his computer screen. "Where are you taking me?" she asked. "I was going to drop you at the nearest station, but if people are trying to kill you, that's not safe. They might have spies watching for you." He turned to look at her. "Where do you need to go?" "Space. If I can reach my mother's fleet, I will be protected." Wu looked at the map. Space was far away, very far. It would take weeks to get there, and the path was filled with danger, lawless regions, pirate territories, places where a small cargo ship could disappear and no one would ever know. "That's a long trip," he said. "I know, you do not have to take me. You have already done more than I could ask." Wu was quiet for a moment. He looked at the map, then at her, then back at the map. Lyra could see him thinking, weighing his options. She would not blame him if he refused. The journey was dangerous, and she was not his responsibility. "Do you have money?" he asked. Lyra's heart sank. Of course. He wanted payment, she should have known. "I have nothing with me," she admitted. "Everything was on the shuttle." Wu nodded. "Okay." "Okay," Lyra did not understand. "Okay, I'll take you. No payment needed." She stared at him. "Why would you do this? You could die helping me." "I could die doing a lot of things." He sat back in his chair and started pressing buttons. "Besides, I'm not doing anything important. Just carrying boxes from one place to another. Taking a princess home sounds more interesting." Lyra felt something strange in her chest. It was warm and confusing. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever helped her without wanting something. In her world, she was a treasure to be protected or a tool to be used. But to this human, she was just a person who needed help. "Thank you," she said softly. The words felt strange on her tongue. She was not used to thanking anyone. Wu glanced at her and gave a small nod. "Get some rest. We have a long way to go." The silent wave changed direction and began its journey toward space. Lyra went back to the bed and lay down, but she did not sleep right away. She watched Wu through the doorway, watched him pilot his ship through the darkness of space. She had so many questions. Who was he really? Why did he live alone on this small ship? What had made him the way he was, so calm and kind in a universe that was usually cruel? But those questions could wait. For now she was safe. For now she had hope. The days that followed were strange and new for Lyra. She had never spent time with a human before. She had never been on a ship this small or eaten food from plastic packages. Everything was different from her life in the palace. Wu did not talk much, but when he did, his words were honest. He told her about his life as a cargo pilot. He told her about the military, though he did not say why he left. He taught her how to read the star maps and how to fix small problems with the ship. In return, Lyra told him about her world. She described the crystal cities of her, the great libraries filled with thousands of years of knowledge, the beauty of her mother's palace. She told him about her sisters and her studies and her dreams. They were so different, from two worlds that barely spoke to each other. But somehow, in that small ship floating through endless space, they began to understand each other. And somewhere behind them, hidden in the darkness, enemy ships began to search. The people who wanted Lyra dead had learned the truth. She had survived, and they would not stop until they finished what they started. The hunt had begun. 2 weeks into the journey, the fuel ran out. Wu had known it might happen. The silent wave was not built for long trips, and space was far away. He had tried to save fuel by flying slowly, by turning off systems they did not need. But it was not enough. The ship drifted in empty space, its engines dark and quiet. Lyra stood beside Wu in the cockpit, looking at the red warning lights. "What do we do now?" she asked. Wu studied the map. There was a small moon nearby, barely more than a rock floating in space. According to his computer, there was an old mining station there. It had been abandoned years ago, but there might still be fuel left behind. "We go there," he said, pointing at the moon, "and we hope." They used the last of their power to reach the moon. The silent wave landed hard on the rocky surface, shaking everything inside. Lyra grabbed the wall to keep from falling. Wu was already putting on his spacesuit. "Stay here," he told her. "I'll look for fuel." "I want to come with you." "It's dangerous." Lyra lifted her chin. "I am not a child, I can help." Wu looked at her for a long moment. She had changed in the past 2 weeks. She was stronger now, braver. The scared princess he had found in the wreckage was becoming something else. "Fine," he said, "but stay close." The moon was cold and dark. The mining station was a collection of old buildings covered in dust and shadows. No one had been here for many years. The doors were broken, the windows were black, and strange sounds echoed through the empty halls. They searched for hours. Most of the fuel tanks were empty, drained long ago by the miners who had left. But finally, in a storage room deep underground, they found what they needed. 3 containers of fuel, still sealed and full. "This is enough," Wu said. "This will get us to space." They carried the containers back toward the ship, moving carefully through the darkness. Lyra felt hope growing in her chest. They were going to make it. They were going to survive. Then the lights appeared. 3 ships dropped from the sky, their engines roaring. They were small and fast, built for hunting. The symbol on their sides made Lyra's blood turn cold. She knew that symbol. It belonged to the people who had tried to kill her. "Run," Wu said. They ran. The enemy ships fired at them and the ground exploded around them. Rocks flew through the air. Dust filled Lyra's helmet. She could not see, could not breathe, could not think. Wu grabbed her hand and pulled her forward. They reached the silent wave and threw themselves inside. The ship shook as weapons hit its hull. Alarms screamed. Red lights flashed everywhere. Wu moved faster than Lyra had ever seen anyone move. He loaded the fuel into the ship systems, started the engines, and lifted off the ground all in seconds. The silent wave flew upward, dodging between enemy fire. "Hold on," he said. The ship shot forward faster and faster. The moon became small behind them. The enemy ships followed, but the silent wave was quick. Wu flew through an asteroid field, turning and spinning between the giant rocks. One wrong move would kill them. One mistake would end everything. Lyra closed her eyes and held her breath. She could hear the engines crying, the hull groaning, the asteroids passing just inches away. She had never been so scared in her life. Then suddenly, silence. She opened her eyes. The asteroid field was behind them. The enemy ships were gone, lost in the maze of rocks. Wu let out a long breath. His hands were shaking on the controls. "Are you okay?" he asked. Lyra nodded. She could not speak. Her whole body was trembling. They were safe for now. The next few days were hard. The ship had been damaged in the escape. Wu spent hours fixing things, crawling into small spaces and working with tools that were old and worn. Lyra watched him work, watched him cut his hands on sharp metal and burn his fingers on hot wires. He never complained. He just kept going. Food became a problem. They had not planned for such a long trip and their supplies were running low. Wu started eating less so Lyra could have more. She noticed, even though he tried to hide it. "You need to eat," she told him one night. "I'm fine." "You are lying. I can see it in your eyes." Wu looked at her. He was tired, so tired. Dark circles had formed under his eyes and his face was thin, but he smiled a little smile. "In my culture, we take care of our guests first," he said. "It's just how things are." "I am not a guest, I am a burden." "You're not a burden, Lyra. You're my responsibility." She felt tears form in her eyes. No one had ever treated her like this. In her palace, servants did everything for her because they had to. They were paid and ordered, but Wu had no orders. He had no payment. He was doing this because he chose to. "Why are you like this?" she asked quietly. "Why do you care so much?" Wu was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice soft and distant. "When I was in the military, I lost people, good people, people I should have saved but couldn't." He looked out the window at the stars. "I couldn't save them, but maybe I can save you. Maybe that means something." Lyra understood then. She understood the sadness in his eyes, the weight on his shoulders. He was not just helping her. He was trying to fix something inside himself, something that had been broken long ago. She reached out and took his hand. It was rough and warm. He looked at her with surprise. "You are a good man, Wu," she said. "The best I have ever known." He did not answer. He did not need to. They sat together in the silence of space, two people from different worlds, connected by something neither of them could explain. The days continued to pass. They faced more dangers, a broken engine that almost killed them, a group of mercenaries who demanded money they did not have, a navigation system that failed and left them lost for 2 days. But they survived. Every time the universe tried to destroy them, they survived. And slowly, step by step, they got closer to space. Lyra found herself changing. She was no longer the princess who knew nothing of the real world. She learned how to fix simple machines. She learned how to cook the terrible food from plastic packages. She learned how to be strong when everything seemed hopeless. And she learned something else, something she was afraid to admit, even to herself. She was beginning to care for this human, not just as a protector or a helper, but as something more. It was wrong. Her people would never accept it. Her mother would be furious, but feelings do not follow rules. They grow on their own like flowers in unexpected places. Lyra kept her feelings hidden. There would be time to think about them later. Right now, they had to keep moving. Space was getting closer. Soon she would be home. Soon she would be safe. But as the border drew near, Lyra felt something strange. She was not sure if she wanted the journey to end. The edge of space appeared on the screens like a line of light. Hundreds of stations and satellites marked the border, watching for any ship that came too close. Beyond that line was the Empire, vast and powerful, protected by the greatest fleet in the galaxy. Lyra stood in the cockpit and felt her heart beating fast. She was almost home. After everything they had been through, she was finally going to see her family again. "We need to contact them," she said. "They will not let us pass without permission." Wu nodded. He looked uncomfortable. They both knew what would happen when they reached space. Humans were not welcome there. The best he could hope for was being sent away. The worst was something neither of them wanted to think about. Lyra found the emergency communication codes hidden in her memory, numbers and words that only the royal family knew. She typed them into the computer and sent a message toward the border stations. "This is Princess Lyra of the Imperial House. I am alive. I request immediate assistance." There was silence, long, terrible silence. Then the screen filled with light as a response came back. "Princess Lyra, stay where you are. We are sending ships to your location." Wu and Lyra waited. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. The journey was ending, and they both knew their lives would never be the same. An hour later, the warship arrived. It was enormous, bigger than anything Wu had ever seen. Its hull was made of something that looked like white crystal, and light seemed to flow through it like water. Compared to the silent wave, it was like a palace next to a cardboard box. "That's a lot of guns pointed at us," Wu said quietly. Lyra touched his arm. "Do not worry, I will protect you." A message came through the communication system. Unknown vessel, you will be boarded. Do not resist." Wu raised his hands and stepped back from the controls, not resisting. The airlock opened, and soldiers poured into the ship. They were tall and beautiful like all, but their faces were hard and cold. They wore armor that shone like silver and carried weapons that hummed with strange energy. Behind them came a man who was clearly their leader. He was older than the others, with gray in his hair and scars on his face. His eyes moved around the ship with disgust, as if he was standing in garbage. "Princess Lyra," he said, bowing his head slightly, "I am Commander Ren. Thank the stars you are alive." "Commander," Lyra nodded at him, "I owe my life to this man. His name is Wu. He saved me from the wreckage and brought me home." Commander Ren looked at Wu. His expression did not change, but something dark moved behind his eyes. He did not like what he saw. "A human," he said. The word sounded like poison in his mouth. "You have been alone with a human for weeks. He protected me. He risked his life for me. Or perhaps he staged the attack himself. Perhaps he plans to demand ransom from the Empress." Wu stayed quiet. He had expected this. No matter what he did, some people would never trust him. That was how the universe worked. "That is foolish," Lyra said, her voice rising. "I saw the attackers. They wore the colors of the separatist faction. This man had nothing to do with them." "With respect, Princess, you were injured and confused. You may not remember things clearly." "I remember perfectly." Commander Ren waved his hand. Two soldiers stepped toward Wu with their weapons raised. "We will take him for questioning. If he is innocent, he has nothing to fear." "No," Lyra moved between the soldiers and Wu. Her eyes were bright with anger. "You will not touch him." The room went silent. Everyone stared at the princess standing in front of a human, defending him like he was one of her own people. It was unthinkable. It was wrong. And yet she stood there, unmoving. "Princess," Commander Ren said slowly, "you do not understand what you are doing." "I understand perfectly. This man saved my life. Not once, but many times. He fought for me. He bled for me. He went hungry so I could eat. He stayed awake for days so I could sleep safely." Her voice shook with emotion. "He is more honorable than half the nobles in my mother's court, and I will not let you treat him like a criminal." Commander Ren's face was hard as stone. He did not like being challenged, especially by a young princess in front of his soldiers. But Lyra was still royalty. Her word carried weight. "Very well," he said at last. "The human will not be harmed, but he must come with us to the Empress will decide what to do with him." Lyra nodded. It was not perfect, but it was enough for now. At least Wu would be safe until they reached her mother. The soldiers led them to the warship. Wu looked back at the silent wave one last time. That little ship had carried him through more danger than he could count. It had been his home for years. Now it floated alone in space, empty and forgotten. "Thank you," he whispered to it. Then he turned and walked away. The inside of the warship was like nothing Wu had ever seen. The walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft light. The floors were smooth and warm. Everything was clean and beautiful, designed by people who had been building wonders for thousands of years. He felt small here, dirty, wrong. The soldiers looked at him like he was an insect that had crawled into their perfect world. They put him in a small room with no windows. It was not a prison cell, but it was close. The door locked behind him and he was alone. Wu sat on the floor and closed his eyes. He thought about everything that had happened, finding Lyra, the long journey, the enemies they had faced. He had done what he thought was right. He had helped someone who needed help. Now his fate was in the hands of people who hated his kind. He wondered if he would ever see the stars again. Hours passed, maybe days, he could not tell. Then the door opened and Lyra walked in. She looked different now. Her silver hair was styled beautifully and she wore a dress that shone like starlight. She looked like what she was, a princess of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. But her eyes were the same, Warm, kind, full of worry. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I've been better," he tried to smile. "Nice dress." She laughed softly. "I hate it, I liked your shirt more." They looked at each other across the small room. So much had changed since they first met. So much had grown between them. "We arrive at the tomorrow," Lyra said. "You will be taken before my mother. She will judge you." "What do you think she will decide?" Lyra was quiet for a moment. "I do not know. My mother is difficult. She has ruled for 300 years. She trusts no one, especially humans." "Sounds fun." "Wu," Lyra stepped closer to him. Her voice was serious. "No matter what happens, I want you to know that I am grateful. You gave me something I never had before." "What's that?" "Hope. Hope that the universe is not as cold and cruel as I thought. Hope that there are good people out there who help others simply because it is right." She reached out and touched his face gently. "You changed how I see everything." Wu did not know what to say. He covered her hand with his own and held it there. "Whatever happens tomorrow," he said, "I don't regret any of it. I would do it all again." Lyra smiled. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "I know you would," she said. "That is why you are special." She left him there, alone in the quiet room. But he did not feel alone anymore. Whatever came next, he knew that someone in this cold universe cared about him. That was enough. That was called Nova Prime. It was the heart of the Empire, a planet of impossible beauty that made every other world look like dust. From space, it glowed like a jewel, its surface covered with crystal cities that reflected the light of 3 suns. Wu watched through a small window as the warship descended through the clouds. He saw towers that reached into the sky, bridges that floated on nothing, and gardens that spread across mountains like rivers of color. It was like a dream made real. No human had ever seen this place. No human had ever been allowed. Until now. They landed in a port near the capital city. Wu was taken from the ship by soldiers who did not speak to him or look at him. To them, he was less than nothing, a creature from a primitive world who had somehow stumbled into their perfect kingdom. But they could not hide their curiosity. He saw them glancing at him when they thought he was not looking. He was probably the first human most of them had ever seen. They took him to a building and told him to wash himself. The bathroom was larger than his entire ship, with pools of warm water and products he did not recognize. He cleaned himself as best he could, scrubbing away weeks of dirt and sweat. When he finished, he found new clothes waiting for him, a simple black suit that fit his body perfectly. It was not style, but it was clean and neat. Someone had thought about what a human would wear. Lyra, he thought, she did this. A guard came to take him to the palace. They walked through streets filled with people who stopped and stared at him. Some looked curious. Some looked disgusted. Some looked afraid. Wu kept his eyes forward and his back straight. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him ashamed. The Imperial Palace was the most beautiful building he had ever seen. It rose from the center of the city like a mountain of light, its walls made of crystal so clear he could see through them. Towers spiraled upward, connected by bridges that glowed with soft colors. At the top, a great dome shone like a captured star. Inside, the beauty continued. Halls stretched in every direction, decorated with paintings and sculptures that were older than human civilization. Nobles walked past in clothes that cost more than Wu would earn in 100 lifetimes. They looked at him with cold eyes and whispered to each other behind their hands. The guards led him to a great door made of something that looked like frozen light. They stopped there and waited. Wu's heart was beating so fast he thought it might break through his chest. The door opened. Beyond it was a room so vast it seemed to have no walls. Light filled every corner, coming from everywhere and nowhere. At the far end, raised on a platform of pure crystal, was a throne. And on that throne sat Empress Nova. She was ancient. Wu could feel it the moment he saw her. She had lived for centuries, had seen empires rise and fall, had ruled billions of people across hundreds of worlds. Her skin was pale blue, almost white, and her hair was like liquid silver. Her eyes were deep purple, the same color as Lyra's but colder, so much colder. She was beautiful like a storm is beautiful, like a glacier is beautiful. There was no warmth in her, only power. "Come forward," she said. Her voice echoed through the great room like music and thunder mixed together. Wu walked toward the throne. He could feel thousands of eyes on him. The court had gathered to see this strange creature, this human who had dared to enter their world. Nobles and commanders and priests, all watching, all judging. He stopped at the foot of the platform and looked up at the Empress. He did not bow. He did not kneel. He simply stood there, meeting her gaze with his own. A murmur went through the crowd. No one looked at the Empress directly. It was not allowed. But this human did not know their rules, or perhaps he did not care. "You are the one called Wu," the Empress said. It was not a question. "Yes. You claim to have saved my daughter from death. You claim to have brought her safely across lawless space. You claim to have done this without payment or reward." "I don't claim anything. I just did what needed to be done." Another murmur from the crowd. This human spoke to the Empress like an equal. It was unthinkable. The Empress's eyes narrowed. "Why should I believe you? Humans are known for lies and violence. Perhaps you arranged the attack yourself. Perhaps you hoped to sell my daughter back to me for gold. If I wanted to sell her, I would have contacted you weeks ago. I would have demanded payment before entering space. Instead, I brought her home and asked for nothing." "Then what do you want?" Wu thought for a moment. The entire court waited for his answer. The Empress leaned forward slightly, watching him with those cold, ancient eyes. "Nothing," he said finally. "I want nothing from you." "Impossible. Everyone wants something." "I found someone who was dying. I helped her, that's all." The Empress stared at him for a long time. Seconds passed. Minutes. The silence pressed down on the room like a weight. "You are either a fool or a liar," she said at last. "No one acts without purpose. No one sacrifices without expecting return. Where I come from, we have a word for people who help others without expecting anything back. We call them decent." A gasp went through the crowd. Wu had just told the most powerful being in the galaxy that her understanding of the universe was wrong. It was either very brave or very stupid, probably both. The Empress rose from her throne. She was taller than Wu had expected, nearly 7 feet, and when she moved, light seemed to bend around her. She walked down from the platform and stood directly in front of him. Up close she was terrifying. Her presence was like standing next to a sun. Wu felt small and fragile, a candle in a hurricane, but he did not look away. He did not step back. "You fascinate me, human," she said quietly, so only he could hear. "I have lived for 300 years. I have met kings and conquerors, geniuses, but I have never met anyone quite like you. Is that good or bad? I have not decided yet." She turned and walked back to her throne. When she sat down, her face was unreadable once more. "Commander Ren believes you are a spy. He believes you should be executed immediately." Wu said nothing. There was nothing to say. "Others believe you are a fool who stumbled into something bigger than yourself. They think you should be sent home and forgotten." "And what do you believe?" The Empress smiled. It was a cold smile without warmth, but it was a smile. "I believe I need more information. I believe I need to hear from someone who knows the truth." She raised her hand and the great doors opened again. Lyra walked into the room, dressed in a gown of silver and blue. She looked like a goddess, beautiful and fierce. She walked past the watching nobles, past Commander Ren's angry face, and stood beside Wu. "Mother," she said, bowing her head, "I have something to say." The Empress nodded. "Then speak, daughter. Tell me the truth about this human." Lyra raised her head. Her eyes were bright with determination. "I will," she said. "I will tell you everything." The court fell silent. The Empress leaned forward on her throne, and Lyra began to speak. Lyra stood in the center of the throne room, surrounded by the most powerful people in the galaxy. Nobles watched her with curious eyes. Commanders studied her with suspicion. Her mother, the Empress, looked down from her throne with a face that revealed nothing. Lyra had given speeches before. She had addressed crowds and councils, but this was different. This was the most important moment of her life. She was not just speaking for herself. She was speaking for the man who stood beside her, the man who had given everything to bring her home. She took a deep breath and began. "When my shuttle was attacked, I thought I was going to die. The ship was torn apart. My guards fell around me. Fire and blood were everywhere. I crawled into a storage room and waited for death to find me." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly at her sides. The memory was still fresh, still painful. Then he came, a stranger, a human. He walked into that wreckage and found me bleeding and broken. He did not know who I was. He did not know I was a princess. He only knew that someone needed help. She looked at Wu. He stood still and quiet, his face calm. He had not asked her to speak for him. He had not asked her for anything. That was who he was. He carried me to his ship. It was small and old and smelled like engine oil. Nothing like the palaces I had known my whole life. He gave me his bed and slept on the floor. He used his medicine on my wounds even though he did not know if it would work on. The crowd listened in silence. Even Commander Wren had stopped frowning. Something was changing in the room. The hatred was fading, replaced by something else. Curiosity, maybe even respect. I woke up afraid. I had been taught all my life that humans were dangerous, violent, barbaric. I expected him to hurt me or use me or demand something from me. But he did none of those things. He just asked me if I was okay. Lyra's voice grew stronger as she continued. When I told him who I was, he did not fall to his knees or beg for reward. He simply nodded and said he would take me home. He asked me nothing in return. He expected nothing. She turned to face her mother directly. "Do you understand what that means, Mother? In a galaxy where everyone has a price, where every action is a transaction, this man helped me because it was right. Not because it was profitable, not because it was safe. He helped me because he saw someone who needed help and he could not walk away." The Empress's face remained unreadable, but her eyes were fixed on Lyra with intense focus. The journey was long. It was dangerous. We ran out of fuel on a dead moon and nearly froze to death. Enemies found us and chased us through asteroid fields. The ship broke down again and again, and he fixed it with his bare hands until they were bloody and burned. Lyra felt tears forming in her eyes, but she did not stop. He gave me his food. When our supplies ran low, he stopped eating so I could have enough. I saw him grow thin and tired, saw the exhaustion in his eyes, but every time I asked if he was okay, he smiled and said he was fine. A soft gasp went through the crowd. They understood sacrifice. They valued honor above all things, and what Lyra was describing was honor in its form. He stayed awake for days to keep watch while I slept. He fought mercenaries who tried to capture us. He flew through dangers that would have killed anyone else, and he never once complained. He never once blamed me for the trouble I had brought into his life. Lyra wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She did not care if the nobles saw her crying. Let them see. Let them understand. I asked him why. Why would he do all of this? Why would he risk his life for someone he did not know? Do you know what he said? She looked at the crowd, at the faces watching her with growing emotion. He said that when he was in the military, he lost people, friends, people he loved. He could not save them, and it broke something inside him. He said that maybe by saving me, he could fix some of that brokenness. Maybe it would mean something. Lyra turned back to her mother. Her voice broke as she spoke the next words. "He saved me, Mom, not for glory, not for reward. He saved me because that is who he is. He saved me because he is good. The throne room was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. I know what our people think of humans. I know the stories and the warnings. But I am telling you, as your daughter, as someone who has seen the truth with her own eyes, that those stories are wrong. This man is not a barbarian. He is not a monster. He is the kindest, bravest person I have ever known. Lyra stepped forward, closer to the throne. Her mother looked down at her, and for the first time there was something different in those ancient eyes, something soft. Please, mother, please believe me. Please let him go free. He does not deserve to be punished for doing what was right. The silence stretched on. Seconds felt like hours. The entire court waited for the Empress to speak. Finally she did. Come here, daughter. Lyra climbed the steps to the throne. She stood before her mother, small and trembling, a princess begging for a human's life. The Empress reached out and touched Lyra's face gently. It was a gesture no one had seen from her in centuries. The cold ruler of the empire, showing warmth to her child. You believe everything you have said, the Empress said quietly. I can see it in your eyes. I believe it because it is true. And you care for this human, not just as someone who helped you, but as something more. Lyra hesitated. She had not admitted this to anyone, not even to herself, but lying to her mother was impossible. Yes, she whispered, I care for him. The Empress nodded slowly. Her eyes moved to Wu, who still stood at the foot of the platform, watching and waiting. Human, she said, her voice carried through the silent room. Do you have anything to say? Wu looked up at her. He was tired and worn, a simple man standing before the most powerful being in the galaxy, but his eyes were steady. Your daughter is one of the strongest people I have ever met, he said. She did not give up, no matter how hard things got. She did not complain when the food was bad or the ship was cold. She fought beside me when enemies came. Whatever you decide to do with me, I want you to know that you raised her well. You should be proud. The Empress stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly, something impossible happened. She smiled. It was not a cold smile this time. It was warm, real, a smile that no one in the court had seen for hundreds of years. In 3 centuries of rule, she said, I have heard thousands of people beg for their lives. They promised me gold. They promised me loyalty. They promised me everything they could think of. But you are the first to use your final words to praise my daughter. She stood from her throne. Perhaps I have been wrong about humans. Perhaps you are not all as simple as I believed. The court murmured in shock. The Empress admitting she might be wrong. It was unthinkable. I will make my decision tomorrow, she announced. Until then, the human will be treated as a guest, not a prisoner. Anyone who harms him will answer to me personally. She looked at Lyra, and her expression softened again. You did well, daughter. You spoke with courage and truth. Whatever else happens, remember this moment. This is who you are. Lyra bowed her head. Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. Thank you, mother. The court began to break apart as nobles and commanders left the throne room. Wu remained where he was, still processing what had happened. Lyra came down from the platform and stood beside him. That was something, he said quietly. That was everything. She took his hand in hers, right there in front of anyone who might be watching. She did not care anymore what people thought. Whatever happens tomorrow, she said, we face it together. Wu squeezed her hand gently. Together, he agreed. Outside the great windows of the palace, the 3 suns of Nova Prime began to set, painting the crystal city in shades of gold and crimson. The universe continued to turn, indifferent to the small dramas of mortals. But for Wu and Lyra, standing hand in hand in the throne room, nothing else mattered. They had found each other, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The morning came with golden light streaming through crystal walls. Wu had not slept much. His room in the palace was more beautiful than anything he had ever seen, but beauty did not calm his worried mind. Today, the Empress would decide his fate. He dressed in the same black suit from before and waited by the window, watching the alien sun rise over the shining city. Somewhere out there, beyond the towers and bridges, beyond the edge of this perfect world, the stars were waiting. He wondered if he would ever see them again. A servant came to take him to the throne room. The walk was long and silent. Every they passed stopped to look at him, some with curiosity, some with something that almost looked like respect. Word had spread about what Lyra had said. The whole empire was talking about the human who saved the princess. The throne room was full again, packed with nobles and commanders and officials from every corner of the empire. They had come to witness something historic. Whatever happened today would be remembered for centuries. Wu walked through the crowd to the foot of the throne. Lyra was already there, dressed in white, her silver hair glowing in the morning light. She gave him a small smile when he took his place beside her. The Empress sat on her throne of light, as ancient and powerful as the stars themselves. Her face was calm, unreadable. She wore a crown of crystal that caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. "Silence," she commanded. The room fell instantly quiet. "We have come to decide the fate of the human called Wu. He entered our space without permission. He brought our princess home after her shuttle was destroyed. He claims to have acted without hope of reward." Her purple eyes fixed on Wu. "Yesterday, I heard my daughter speak of this man. She told me of his courage and his kindness. She told me that he sacrificed his own comfort for hers, that he risked his life again and again to keep her safe." The crowd murmured softly. "I have ruled this empire for 300 years. In that time, I have learned to trust no one. I have seen betrayal from friends, lies from lovers, and treachery from my own blood. I believed that all beings were selfish at their core, that everyone acts only for their own gain." She paused. The silence was heavy. "This human has proven me wrong." A gasp went through the crowd. The Empress admitting error in public. It had never happened before. "I have had my spies investigate his story. Every word checks out. He found my daughter dying in the wreckage. He saved her. He protected her. He brought her home, and when given chances to profit from his situation, he refused." The Empress stood from her throne. The light around her seemed to grow brighter, as if responding to her mood. "I do not understand this man. His actions make no sense by the rules I have known my entire life. He had nothing to gain and everything to lose, yet he helped anyway. It is foolish. It is strange." She walked down from the platform and stood before Wu. "It is also the most honorable thing I have witnessed in centuries." Wu met her gaze. Up close, she was even more intimidating, her presence like standing beside a force of nature. But he did not look away. "Wu," the Empress announced, her voice carrying through the vast room, "I declare you a friend of the Empire. This is a title that has never been given to a human in our history. It grants you safe passage through all space. It grants you protection under our laws. It marks you as an ally of our people." The crowd exploded into whispers and gasps. Nobles turned to each other in shock. Commander Ren's face was pale with disbelief. The Empress raised her hand, and silence fell again. "Furthermore, you will be given a communication device linked directly to my daughter. No matter where you are in the galaxy, you may speak to her. This is my gift to both of you for the bond you have formed." Lyra's hand found Wu's. She was crying again, but this time from joy. "Finally," the Empress continued, "your ship, the Silent Wave, has been recovered and repaired by our engineers. It has been upgraded with technology. Consider it a small repayment for what you have done." Wu did not know what to say. He had expected to be sent away at best, executed at worst. This was beyond anything he had imagined. "Thank you," he managed. The Empress nodded. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the room, including Wu. She bowed her head to him. "No," she said softly. "Thank you. You returned my daughter to me. You gave me back something I thought was lost. There is no repayment great enough for that." The throne room was silent with awe. The empress of the most powerful being in the galaxy, bowing to a human cargo pilot. It was a sight that would be told in stories for generations. Later that day, Wu walked through the palace gardens with Lyra. The plants were strange and beautiful, flowers that sang when the wind blew and trees that glowed with soft light. It was like walking through a dream. So Lyra said, "You are leaving." "I have to. My life is out there among the stars. I can't stay in one place." "I know," she looked down at the path. "I will miss you." Wu stopped walking. He turned to face her, this princess from another world who had become so important to him. "This isn't goodbye forever," he said. "Your mother gave us a way to talk, and now I can travel through your space whenever I want. We will see each other again." "Promise." "Promise." Lyra smiled through her tears. She reached up and put her arms around him, holding him tight. He held her back, memorizing the feeling of her warmth against him. "You changed my life," she whispered. "You changed how I see everything." "You changed mine too. I was alone before. I thought that was what I wanted. But now," he pulled back to look at her face, "now I know that having someone to care about makes the universe a lot less cold." They stood there in the garden, two people from different worlds, connected by something stronger than distance. That evening, Wu returned to his ship. The silent wave looked different now. Its hull was smooth and shining, repaired with materials that seemed to flow like water. The inside was still familiar, but everything worked better. The lights were brighter. The engines hummed with new power. It was still his ship, but improved. He found Lyra's gift on the pilot's seat, a small crystal that glowed with soft blue light. When he held it, he could hear her voice. "For when you miss me," she said through the crystal, "I will always be here." Wu smiled and put the crystal in his pocket, close to his heart. He sat in the pilot's seat and started the engines. The ship rose from the landing platform, climbing higher and higher above the crystal city. Through the window, he could see the palace, the towers, the beauty of Nova Prime spread out below him. At one of the palace windows, a figure in white watched him go. Lyra raised her hand in farewell. Wu raised his hand in return. The silent wave broke through the atmosphere and entered the darkness of space. Stars spread out in every direction, infinite and eternal, waiting to be explored. Word of what had happened spread across the galaxy. Traders and travelers carried the story from station to station, from world to world. A human had saved a princess. A human had been honored by the Empress herself. A human had been named Friend of the Empire. People who had never thought about humans before began to wonder. Maybe they were not as barbaric as everyone believed. Maybe there was more to them than violence and chaos. On distant worlds began speaking to humans for the first time. Small conversations, careful exchanges, the first tiny steps toward understanding. One man could not change the universe, but one man could start something, a ripple that grew into a wave, a spark that became a fire. Wu flew on through the stars, alone but not lonely. The crystal in his pocket glowed softly, a reminder that somewhere in the galaxy someone was thinking of him. He did not know what the future held. He did not know where his path would lead, but he knew one thing for certain. He had made a difference, not through weapons or power or politics, just by being kind when it mattered, just by helping when no one was watching. And in a galaxy that could be cold and cruel, that was no small thing. The silent wave disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying its pilot toward new adventures. Behind it, the light of Nova Prime faded into the distance. But the connection remained, the bridge between worlds, the friendship between stars. Some things once built can never be broken.